Shimmy says, ask me almost anything.
Hey everyone, it's Alan Schimmel here for another Shimmy Says. You know, I love doing these Shimmy Says, to tell you the truth. It's kind of cathartic. But this week I want to talk to you about tariffs and tech. A lot of talk going on about tariffs. We're tariffing here in the U.S. our three biggest trade partners probably. And talk of trade wars and retaliatory measures and all kinds of stuff going on. We could talk about it at the macro level, but I want to talk to you today about what effect these tariffs are going to have on our tech market. You know, the tech market's been, quite frankly, shaky since the end of COVID. We've had so many layoffs, more layoffs than many of us remember in the tech space. A lot of it is the result of hiring binges during COVID, where we probably overhired, and things now have kind of evened out. But what effect will these tariffs, or could they potentially have on the tech market? I think if we look at it, we got to start at the semiconductor market, because so much of tech starts at the revolves around the hardware and the chips that are running all this software and AI and everything we're doing. And let's be clear, 80 to 90% of the semiconductors that we use in the U.S. come from China and Taiwan. Now, I know last week I talked about $2 trillion, and President Biden had this CHIPS Act where they had hundreds of billions of dollars set aside. But the fact is, as we stand today, we don't have a big capacity to produce these chips here in the U.S. And to build that kind of capacity is going to take a minimum of 3 to 5 years. And quite frankly, we've never produced that quality and quantity of chip here in the U.S. 3 to 5 years is the minimum. We may find that it takes retraining an entire workforce or doing something pretty drastic. So what do we do for 3 to 5 years? Are we at the mercy of these tariffs and the 20 to 25% cost that may be involved in importing them? That's anyone's guess. But to think that this is going to force us to use U.S.-made semiconductors, yeah, it might, but we've got a 5-year gap to fill in there in the meantime. What does it mean for the other tech industries? Well, first of all, let's remember how much of our technology, revolves around those semiconductors, those servers. What's cloud costs going to be when they got to pay more for their hardware? Data center costs, AI costs, everything, all this money pouring into AI, we're going to need it if it's 20 to 25% more. So, the cost of the basic semiconductor, it ripples through the entire tech sphere. But forget semiconductors even for a second. What about other materials that go into computers? Other services, rare earths and minerals and so forth that you need. Raw materials, right? We get a lot of raw materials from Canada. That's going to cost more. Energy. We actually, though we're kind of energy independent in the amount of energy we produce here in the U.S., we actually do share energy grid with Canada. What is that going to mean? It's a ripple through the entire tech sector. On top of that, though, there's other macro conditions to worry about. If car manufacturing slows down because of tariffs, or other imported kind of goods slow down, and it slows down the economy, inflation goes up, interest rates go up, people start buying less tech. Again, that's going to have a very, very chilling effect on the tech sector. So our domestic tech economy, and tech has become a big chunk of our economy, is at the mercy of these tariffs. at least for the short term of 3 to 5 years. Now, on top of that, there's another aspect we've got to think about, and that is, what about when countries retaliate against us for our tariffs by raising their own tariffs? So now, all of a sudden, it becomes much harder to sell U.S. technology in Europe and China and India and Taiwan and Canada and Mexico. I will tell you that most tech companies, at least 40% of their business is international, non-U.S. If countries reciprocate against our tariffs by having tariffs of their own, you're talking about, all of a sudden, it becomes really hard for U.S. tech companies to sell their technology to foreign markets. And what does that mean for the tech sector? What does that mean for the tech sector? Do we have tech companies move out of the U.S. over it? Do we bifurcate tech companies into U.S.-based versus foreign-based and split them up? You know, how much money does a company like Apple or Meta or Google make from foreign markets? And you know, those companies are ripe targets for countries and nation states that want to reciprocate and retaliate against our own tariffs. I've always been a proponent of free trade. I think I have a lot of faith in the American ingenuity, the American industrial engine, that given a level playing field, we could out-innovate, out-produce, and out-compete any competitors, or at least hold our own at the very least. I'd like to see us make more level playing fields, not erect barriers and turn inward in some sort of isolationist stance, because it's not good for our tech sector. It's not good for our economy as a whole. It's not good for our nation as a whole. So I'm hoping that a lot of this tariff stuff winds up just becoming posturing for trade negotiations, but I fear it isn't. And it could be we're in for some rough rides in the tech sector in the next 3 to 5 years, or at least until this administration's over, and maybe some new kind of blood and new way of looking at global trade comes into power. That's it for this week for Shimmy Says. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's interesting times we live in. So until next week, you can catch me every Monday to Friday at 9:30 a.m. on LinkedIn Live here, or on DevOps.com page, doing the Tech Strong Gang. So I look forward to seeing you then. But until then, this is Alan Schimmel. We're out.
Shimmy says, shimmy says, shimmy, shimmy, shimmy says, ask me almost anything.